Hey, what's going on, everybody? So we just wrapped up the 16th practice of the fall today. There's a few things I'd like to discuss before we get into the interviews stuff. But first off, just want to talk about University of Miami. It's the first day of fall classes, and also practice was in the morning instead of at night, like the first 2.5 weeks of practices. And I've been told that that's going to continue throughout the rest of the season. So plan on, interviews, practice sessions in the morning. As far as today's practice, unfortunately, we were not able to have a viewing period or a filming period at all today, but I did check in to see if that's going to be the plan moving forward, but it's not. So they're planning on still having viewing sessions. So shout out to everybody who's been watching those practice updates and drills and things like that, planning on still having those in the future. But today I'm just doing an instant reaction from the interviews after practice, and also just give you guys a few updates on what's going on with the team. First off, head coach Manny Diaz spoke to the media members today. First time he spoke since the second scrimmage over the weekend. And I asked him about maybe some differences or some changes or improvements that the team has made since fall camp. And he really thought about it for a second, and he really just kind of went through a list of improvements he's seen with the defense. Started with linebacker, and then he also talked about the defensive line play, in particular the defensive tackle play. He thinks it's going to be better, and he thinks if it is better, it's going to help the defense as a whole. He also talked about the secondary. He sees a lot more intensity with Travaris Robinson at coach, and he's just seen a lot more intensity overall with the defense into fall camp, which is a lot different than the spring. He noted in the spring, you're going every other day with practices, maybe a couple days off. But in the fall, it's pretty much, you have a day off maybe once a week. Sometimes you go 6-7 days in a row. So we've seen the intensity of fall camp. Also noted with the defensive tackles, Coach Jess Simpson is back, and he also noticed this intensity there. So just wanted to make those notes. I asked D'Eriq King maybe some of the same questions, maybe some improvements that he's seen, and I found it very interesting what he had to say. He said that basically that the offense is doing a better job of not just making plays when they're there, or if a guy's wide open, or if it's a perfect play call or against a good coverage where it's beneficial for the offense. He said they're actually doing a good job of making plays that aren't necessarily there. The defense is doing a good job in their coverage, or maybe the play call is not as good as it needed to be on that particular play, but guys are still making plays. And I find that very interesting. I find that very telling. I feel like that's got to be an identity with the offense, particularly with D'Eriq King at quarterback, because of the things he can do as a dual threat quarterback with his legs and his arm, and he just understands what it takes to be successful at this level. So I think these are all good positive signs. Once again, just want to touch on that. Once again with Mike Harley, I asked him the same question with the offense, his kind of point of view, maybe some things or differences, improvements that he's seen in fall camp. And he really likes the consistency that he's seen from the group, says that's been a good job. They've done a good job with that. I also asked Mike about, if you guys watch these videos, I've been kind of pointing out that, look, Mike's doing drills. He's just not doing all of them when we're out there. He's getting stretched out a little bit. I find that something just to watch for, because as a guy with a lot of speed in Mike, you never want it to be a lingering issue, maybe of a hamstring or a growing. We don't know that to be the case, but he's just getting stretched out a little bit more. So I asked Mike just how he's feeling physically. He said he's feeling great, and actually said that he feels like he's just getting a little bit more stretching. He's not a freshman who can just roll out of bed and practice. He kind of joked that he's a little bit older guy, so he's just doing a little bit more stretching. So I just want to make that note. In regards to some other injury news, I asked Coach Diaz maybe some updates on Zion Nelson, because we weren't able to be out there for viewing. And Coach Diaz, last time he spoke to us, said that he'd be out here. Felt like him and Jade Silvera would both be out of practice as they get into Bama Prep week. And this starts that. So I asked, was Zion out here today? And he said he was. He also didn't say how much he was able to do, but it just basically feels like he's going to be able to get his reps increase more as the Bama game gets closer, and he feels like he'll be ready for the opener, which is very similar to what the things he said in the past. So we'll see, and once again, hoping to be out there later this week. Hopefully tomorrow we're able to be out there for a viewing period. I can give you my take on what Zion Nelson is actually doing, how he looks and things like that. So as far as Jade Silvera, if you guys know, he did participate in the scrimmage after missing some practices last week. And Coach said, Coach mentioned that he had a sack in the scrimmage, said he looked good, he's doing well, and he's also doing a good job of doing what Jess Simpson wants him to do. So I find that to be good. It's encouraging, and that's what Coach Diaz had to say as well. So those are just a couple, maybe a few injury notes with this team, even though we weren't able to be out there, but I wanted to pass that along to you. And for more complete coverage of the team, the Hurricanes, check out InsideTheU.com always for more in-depth coverage. I always try to do as much as I possibly can with these videos. Moving on, safety Avante Williams. Many of you are curious about his status, what's going on with him after charges were dropped. Coach Diaz addressed it today, and he did not say that they are definitely moving on from him, even though he has been dismissed from the team. Basically, they're saying they're doing their background, or they're trying to get the right documents so the right decision makers can make a proper decision. I found that to be interesting with his wording. You can kind of read between the lines there, so we will wait and see on kind of what the latest with Avante is moving forward, and we will just have to wait and see how things are going there. As far as the offense, I want to touch on a few more things too. D'Eriq King, I think sometimes we don't talk about him enough because he is a starting quarterback, and he's back, and essentially his health looks fine. As far as we've seen, he hasn't missed anything. He only did about half the scrimmage, which is common for a first team guy, a starter, but he did like about four series last scrimmage. So basically you give some opportunities to the younger guys. But D'Eriq says he feels faster, he feels good physically, and we have to take him for what he says and from what we've seen, and he looks great. I think he also noted that this is the first time in his college career that he's had the same offensive scheme from one year to the next, so I find that to be interesting. He feels good, feels confident. And I think what also helps D'Eriq is he's got plenty of playmakers at all levels with the offense, proven guys at running back, wide receiver, and also at tight end. So I think he feels good with what he has. Also the offensive line, while we don't know exactly who the guys are going to be with that first unit, it's going to be some sort of a mix of guys that were back from last year. So he feels good with the offense, and he looks good as far as everything that we've seen. He also noted that we mentioned it too, but that I think it was that second practice of the fall, he made a nice scramble during live action. He felt like that was the play that really felt like that he was definitely back. Now he felt confident over the summer, that physically he was fine, but just being able to do that in practice, he kind of looked back on that practice, and we made a strong note of that when it happened. But he looked back on that as a very important part to make sure that he knows that he's able to go and able to produce at this level the way he needs to. And I thought that was good, and especially good that happened early in fall camp. Not that it's 4 or 5 days before the first game and you're hoping and waiting and seeing if you can make those plays that you did a year ago for your whole career. So it's a good sign. Manny Diaz did mention running back as maybe the biggest battle, or one of the tightest battles still going on as far as who will get the first carry. Made sure to mention, and this is obvious, but it's not that they don't have someone that can do it, it's that he feels confident in all three guys, Don Chaney Jr., Cameron Harris, and Jalen Knight, and that all three of those guys can do that, have that responsibility. But they said that the coaches are still working out, trying to figure out how they're going to divvy up the reps and decide who's going to get that first carry. So something to still pay attention to. If I were to guess, I still think it's Cameron Harris at this point. I know they like Don Chaney Jr. I just think about how Don's been kind of in and out a little bit more than Cam throughout fall camp, dealing with the shoulder recovery. I just feel like Cam has, just kind of maybe that's my guess at this point. Coach Diaz was asked specifically about Cam. I want to make sure I mention that because it wasn't like he singled Cam out, but he was asked specifically, how does Cam look? And Diaz praised him and said he's looked really good. And you definitely get, like I said, more information on the website there. But I think that's a good sign also, and I think from what we've seen, again, we're not at every practice, and we're not able to be throughout the duration of a single practice, but that's why I always try to mention from what we've seen, he has looked good, and I think he looks good physically. I think he's going to get that first carry. I think he'll get the bulk of it, but I think all three guys will play in that opener because I think they're going to need all three guys to maybe kind of mix it up a little bit against an Alabama defense that is one of the best in the nation, especially up front. So definitely it's going to be tough for Miami to run the ball. We will see how it goes. As far as some other things maybe to note, Coach Mark Richt was at today's practice. He actually spoke to the media. It was good to see him. I was able to ask him a couple questions, and my first one was about just his thoughts on the indoor practice facility. If you guys remember, he was very instrumental in bringing Miami, the University of Miami, the indoor practice facility, as well as a lot of other people, including the Soffer family. So I want to make sure we make note of that. But while he was here, he talked about that. He definitely feels good about it. Feels like it looks great. I think it's important for, however coaches leave their legacy, what things they accomplished while they're at a university, while they're the head coach. You talk about wins and losses, improving the team status and things like that. But I think it definitely, improving the facilities has to be something that Coach Richt is proud of, and it's certainly seen that way. My other question to Coach Richt right before we wrapped it up, and I want to get it right, but definitely more information, the full information will be on the site, but just I asked him what he looks for in a quarterback. This is a guy that was a quarterback, been around a lot of professional quarterbacks, had great play at times over his career, what he looks for at the quarterback position. And if you hear any head coach or college football coach talk about college football, they always talk about the importance of a quarterback, how good they are. And I asked Coach Richt what the number one thing is that he looks for in a quarterback. What does he need to have? What's the most important trait? Because there's so many different things. He actually listed 3. He talked about number 1 was the accuracy. Number 2, he just talked about the leadership and things like that. And once again, I forgot the 3rd one, but you can go to the website. He talked about all 3. But definitely the number 1 thing he said was accuracy. But he also, can he be the face of the program? And can he handle it? He said basically you don't know if he can handle the responsibilities of being the guy until they're actually out there. So I found it very interesting. And he also noted just how it was at Miami. He felt like with Brad Kaya, he had it. He said Malik Rozier kind of had it. And he just feels like Derek King definitely has it, and is a guy that's pretty special, and feels like you got to have a really good quarterback if you want to have a chance of beating Alabama. Plenty of more information on the website. I've made plenty of notes about that. I want to thank everybody for watching. Hopefully you guys like this. Hopefully we're back inside or back watching plays at the next practice. But thanks for watching, and take care.